to really stretch yourself and take on a leadership role that you didn't even think was possible. Of course, you're going to be exposed to different people, people from different companies, different industries. That's going to help with your professional network. And of course, our community is under a lot of strain right now, coming out from the pandemic, anti-APA hatred, so many things that are really putting stress on our communities. And it's really what Asian Pacific Community Fund is so passionately helping other nonprofits to make a difference. And that's why I really, really appreciate our collaboration for these many years with Chen Chen and her staff to really build out this program and make it as successful as it has been. So with that, I just want to hand it back to Karen. And again, thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Andrew. And for some reason, my slides were paused, so y'all didn't even see me succeeding the slides. So I apologize about that. This is how you can stay connected with AAPA. And this was the slide on our programs. And this was the slide that I was referring to about Andrew and Chen Yan. So apologize for y'all not seeing that. And then I'd like to go ahead and give the floor to Ms. Chen Yan Chen to introduce herself and talk a bit more about APCF.
Hello, good afternoon and good evening. And I really think that's wonderful. After the long day work, you are still here to try to learn more about board leadership program. Just like Karen and Andrew have been saying, that it's been an 8 years wonderful partnership between Asian Pacific Community Fund with AAPA. Just like Andrew shared that, many of the Asian Pacific Islander employee at your company, you may have different responsibility, different leadership position. But what other can you help our API community? So APCF founded in 1990, so we are 33 years old or young. Our mission is to cultivate API leader, API philanthropy, to invest in API community. Simple, just like that. And how do we get more people involved in our community? But we all want you to maintain your job, and whatever you're very successful as an executive or whatever position you are, you have expertise. But there's a way we can invite you to support our API community. So as you can see, that there are two major purposes between APCF program. One is to kind of increase the philanthropy through various services like a donor advice fund, giving circle, customized scholarship program, and even workplace giving through the payroll deduction. Like a long time ago, people say it's the Asian version United Way, but the younger generation never heard of United Way. So basically, it's a payroll deduction from your paycheck that your employer partner with Asian Pacific Community Fund, that you can choose to donate $5, $2 per paycheck to support API community. So that's APC's philanthropy program. And we actually have a lot of scholarships due on April 3rd. So maybe Rachel can later on find out scholarship link we can share, because we want many of API students can pursue their dream to go to higher education, attend college. But the second part of the purpose is to sustain and grow API nonprofit. As Andrew was talking about, APC's mission is to support our community. We want to train the trainer. We want our API nonprofit, our most successful, effective run. But many of you know, just like Karen Long and me, we have the executive director, but we need our board director to support us. And they have different network, they have different opportunity, not just fundraising, oversight, how to advocate our mission and cause through different network of the board member is very, very important. So we have a workshop, we have a connecting funder, but the most important, we have this partnership with AAPA for board leadership. So as you can see the slide right now, that our nonprofit is within APCA network. We have a 77 network in Southern California and speaking 35 Asian language plus English and Spanish, and over 1 million people are served by all of them. So if you are able to participate board leadership program this year, you will have opportunity not only be trained to how to be a best board director, you may volunteer to join the internship part, which is the one that I think later on the speaker will explain their own experience about being a board leadership alumni. But the most importantly, as a board director, you are not only helping the executive director, but you are helping the advance the mission of that nonprofit because you have different network than the executive director. You are helping expand the network of the mission of the nonprofit. So just give you a sense, this is our network agency, and we are still finalizing which one will be the one hosting board intern in this year. But the most importantly, during this 6 months board leadership program, we have a wonderful curriculum, has partnered with AAPA, and we have an amazing speaker from the nonprofit history, management, accounting, fundraising, what not to do, what to do as a board director. All of the subject will be covered in this 6 months. And this is definitely a great opportunity for you to learn how to help API nonprofit as a board director. But most importantly, it will help you to be a better leader, effective leader, to support the mission of the API community. So I think I do want to point out, I have a wonderful staff, Rachel here, and she will work closely with Karen throughout the BLP program this year. And we're looking forward to meeting you at the first day when we kick off the 2023 BLP. So I'll turn back to Karen.
Thank you, Chunyan, so much for such a great summary of all the amazing work that APCF is doing in collaboration with AAPA. And I'm really, really excited to move into our panel discussion. So that gave you kind of a great context, right, of how the BLP came about. And I'd like you all to hear personally from folks who have been through the program. So our panelist speakers today will be Susan Huang, one of our BLP alumni, as well as Michael Lee, who also supported on the logistics side. So he was a BLP officer for a couple years. So we get to really hear the ins and outs of the program. And we have all of the experts here on our BLP. So make sure you have those questions that we can answer for you. And at this time, I'll go ahead and stop sharing screen. And what I'll do is bring on Michael to introduce himself a little bit. And Michael, if you don't mind also sharing how you found us and what kept you here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen, and thank you for having me. It's great to see the number of people attending this info session, and I hope that after all this, you'll be even more interested in joining BLP. So in my professional career, I spent over 15 years in the clean energy space, looking to reduce emissions and improving air quality across the nation, the state of California, and our communities. In the last 8 years, I spent focusing on advancing technologies in clean transportation as a project manager and program manager for SoCal Gas in their research and development demonstration group, and more recently as a program director for a hydrogen fuel cell company funded by the Michelin Group. How I found BLP, that's a great story. I actually didn't find BLP. BLP found me. I was at a point in my career where I was looking at, making more of an impact to the community. My day job, reducing emissions, improving air quality is great, but to Andrew's point of what more can I do? So I was looking at joining a nonprofit, but I had no idea where to start. And luckily, being at SoCal Gas, I was introduced to Andrew, and he introduced me to BLP. This was back in 2016, 2017, so it's been a few years, but it really aligned with everything that I was looking for. Giving back to the community, how can I make an impact to those around me, and really expanding my knowledge and leadership skills. So I joined AAPA after BLP and served on the board for 2 years, and now as a BLP program officer.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Michael. I think that is extremely helpful to kind of hear that timeline. And I also think it's weird that folks don't see me. So hello, spotlight myself. And then thank you for that intro. And I'd like to go ahead and give space and time for Susan to please introduce yourself and tell us how you found AAPA and BLP.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for those of you who are joining after work hours, because we're just standing between you and the dinner time. So appreciate you being here. So for me, in terms of my professional background, I work at a bank right now as a risk manager, and my academic background is in accounting. So I worked in the external audit and internal audit and risk management space. which is actually not that exciting. So for me, just staying involved in the community and getting to, interact with people from different industries have been really interesting and like something that have been passionate about. And I was thinking about a better way to get even more deeply connected to the community to add more value and potentially also bring in some of the stuff that I was learning at work into the non-for-profit space. So while I was thinking about like what the best way to do that might be, I was talking to a colleague at the bank that I'm currently working at, which is City National Bank. And she told me that she had participated in this program before and the bank was sponsoring the colleagues who are involved in the community to take this program. So I was sponsored by the bank the following year to participate in the program. And then after the program, I got to join the El Monte Promise Foundation as the board member there. And the experience so far has been really great. So I'm thankful for the program.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that quick intro. And I love that you're still a board member. And I think that both of you touched on something that was really important is, of course, your board service and finding ways to give back to the community, right, through board service. So would you mind sharing with me just, I know that both of you have intern experience, is just through the program, I guess what was the main takeaway of how you were able to give back to the community? So Michael, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, through the program, through BLP, it gave me a good foundation of how a nonprofit board operates and really getting that hands-on experience through the internship. Me joining AAPA, the main takeaways was really having an impact to those in their career that don't know or need to, how to navigate corporate America, right? Going through your career, it's always great to have a mentor or mentee, a mentor to really help you navigate. And that's really what I wanted to do to give back. And that's why I joined AAPA, was really to help those navigate corporate America, and it from a technical background, because you don't learn that stuff in school. And it's really helpful to have that mentor or sounding board to really help you navigate through different areas of your career, whether you're early stage or mid stage, there's all these things to learn, and really AAPA and BLP gave me that platform to really give back and really to enhance my personal skills.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is developing yourself personally definitely supports giving back to the community in intentional ways. Thank you. Susan, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, agree with everything that Michael just said, but I think for me specifically, like the structure program of what we went through during the program and the internship really helped me have the right foundation to be able to dive in once I joined the board as the official member, to know what I'm looking out for and what I should be paying attention to. It's not something that you can really look up on the internet. So just having that structure program for me was really helpful. Like a couple of the favorite topics that I remember from last year were, there was a session on like what to look out for when you're looking at the financial statement and the financial condition of the organization. And then to me, that was really relevant because my background is accounting and finance. So I was able to use everything that we learned in that session and apply it in the next board meeting when we were going over the financials. And I was asking all these questions, and I could tell that like these questions weren't asked before. So I really appreciated the practical program on what we learned during the sessions.
Thank you, Susan. I think that's super helpful to share because we do touch on topics that are extremely practical that go in hand with, if you're in the internship, that practical board meeting experience that you get, right? Sitting on a nonprofit board as an intern. And just to share some of the topics that we cover, Susan mentioned our financial oversight section, right, which is extremely important. And of course, we go over board governance and the mission statement, how important that is, right, to your roles and responsibilities as a board member. We also bring in executive directors in a panel discussion because we understand that the relationship between executive directors and board members is super important for a nonprofit. There's also advocacy, right? So there's lots of topics that are extremely practical for developing you into that board member, that effective board member. And of course, we understand we're creating that pipeline, right? So we want to ensure that you're prepared because you have that pipeline straight into a nonprofit board. So most folks, I would say 75% of our interns do get invited to become board members of that nonprofit board that they interned on. And I believe Michael and Susan, you're both part of that percentage because you were invited to be part of your nonprofit boards. So do you mind sharing with me what that kind of was like in that process after you completed the program and the internship, and what that was like for you now having completed the program and the internship component? So Susan, you're on El Monte Promise Foundation. Do you mind talking about what that experience was like for you and what you're doing now on the board?
Yeah, sure. So during the internship period, you get to actually participate and listen into the conversation that the board is having. So I got to attend a couple of the board meetings, and one time we actually held a session in person. So it was really good to really connect with the other board members in person and to get to know them. And I also knew that at the end of the process, there will be an interview process to see if there's a mutual fit between myself and the organization to continue the commitment. So I think it was really good to have this period of just getting to know each other before making the full commitment, because serving on the board is a huge responsibility, and it is something that you have to be sure that you're excited about, right? So I think in terms of just ramping that up, it was really helpful. And after joining the board full time, I've been focusing my efforts on building the relationship between my company and this non-for-profit organization. There's a lot that you can do as a board member when you work for a company that also cares about the community. So at City National Bank, we have a program called Dollars for Doers. So if you log your volunteer hours, so for me, any hours that I'm spending on the board and helping out the organization, I log that as a volunteer hour. And the company has awards that they donate to the organization that I'm supporting. So that's one way that I've been trying to, just use my hours to also benefit the organization. But beyond that, because that amount is pretty minimal, I'm trying to establish the relationship between my company and the not-for-profit so that we can make a bigger financial contribution and also have the employees at the company go out and volunteer with the organization to also establish that relationship.
Wow, thank you, Susan. I think there's a few things you said that I definitely want to highlight for folks, is that you're doing this in a sense in partnership and collaboration with your employer, right? So they understand that you're going through this program. Some folks have been sponsored by your employer to be part of the program. So they want to support your development, right? As an employee, they want to ensure that you're getting the training to kind of move up to that next level, right? And then they're supporting you in the work that you're doing through volunteer hours, right? Supporting your passion and supporting nonprofit, the nonprofit sector. And that directly impacts the communities that we work with, right? So El Monte Promise does direct service. There's multiple programs there, right? That directly serves the El Monte and surrounding communities. And so I just want to highlight that the board leadership program is meant to work hand in hand with your sponsor, with your company, right, with your employer, to further develop you. And that creates also an employee that will stay longer, right? Essentially build morale within your company, and that permeates to the larger group within your corporation. So I just want to highlight that most folks will maybe join a program and keep it, from their employer because they don't want to like integrate the two. But it makes so much sense to tell your manager or, your senior executive, hey, look, I'm developing myself and this is what I'm doing to give back to the community. And this is what you can do to support me in this role. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Susan. I think that's a very crucial and important part. Michael, would you mind sharing your experiences with the internship and your board service?
Absolutely. I do want to echo what you and Susan just said of logging hours, giving back to the community. That is a crucial part of serving on a board where you can log your hours that you donated to your nonprofit where your company can match, or there's even what they call a match giving period where whatever you donate to your nonprofit, the company itself will match. So there's multiple ways of giving back. So my experience with the internship, like I said, it was quite a while ago, so I have to think back and jog my memory. But it was, it's exactly what Susan said. You get to participate in the board meetings, really firsthand experience. You go through the workshops that you learn the foundation. You get to see it in action firsthand and getting that hands-on experience. After completing the program, I was asked to join AAPA. And I was on the board for 2 years where I held the position of governance chair. But I also got further involved by being a mentor on AAPA. So really giving back to the community and having a mentee where I can help teach them or really explain, help them navigate the corporate America world, or be a sounding board just to give them some advice or confidence. Really, a lot of these new employees or they're pretty green and they just need a sounding board to boost their confidence. How do I ask for a raise? How do I manage conflict, and how do I just progress my career? So that was really a way for me to give back, and really passionate about it. So it was through BLP, AAPA, and everyone involved where I can use this vessel as a catalyst to help others, but also at the same time develop my own skills.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and thanks for mentioning that. I do want to remind folks something that Chen Yan mentioned about the internship. So we are talking heavily right now about the internship component, but I do want to mention that not everyone is an intern, right? So there are actually just a few internship spots within the cohort. And this is intentional in a sense because we want the nonprofit to have their recruiting board members, right? So we want to ensure that they have participants that are aligned with the work and the cause of their nonprofit. But we also want to ensure that the participants are aligned with that work, because something that Susan and Michael just said is that you want to be aligned, right? You want to be able to find your personal and professional resources to support this nonprofit. And that comes when you have the passion to support that nonprofit too. So there has to be alignment on both sides. And because not every single nonprofit is recruiting, Chen Yan mentioned that the network agencies that they reach out to, there is over 70 nonprofits, but there's only maybe a handful that are currently looking for board members right now or have available board seats. So to give you an idea, we cap the participants at 25 in the cohort, and we have about 9 to 10 internship spots available each program year, roughly. So that was what we had last year. So not everyone will have an internship, and that's okay. We wanted to share the information about what the internship looks like, but you're also getting the curriculum, right? The actual practical training through our workshops and our sessions, which is something that Susan highlighted. And so that is something that you take with you, and you have the opportunity now completing the board leadership program to be a great candidate because you have this training under your belt now, and you become part of our alumni network. So if we do hear about folks, or folks reach out to us and they say, hey, we're recruiting for board members, you're now part of that pool of exceptionally trained candidates that we will share with them, right? And in turn share with you, saying, hey, if you're interested, here's an opening for a board position, you can apply. So those are some of the benefits, right, of going through the program, even if you're not an intern of the nonprofit internship component. So just wanted to share that. Anything you both want to highlight or add to that? If not, it's okay.
No, I think you covered it. It's really, it's such a great program that it really develops you from the foundation and giving you that hands-on experience and exposure to different nonprofits and networks and communities. So it's really great effort.
Yeah, thank you. And I think also, some folks come in very green, right? Very fresh. They just want to learn. And it's not the right time, right? To be an intern. And you maybe want to just go through the program, get the curriculum, learn all that you can learn. But now you have that network, and maybe it's the next year, right? 2024, 2025 is when you're ready to be of service to that nonprofit. So those are just, things I want to highlight, and just, food for thought. And I want to go back to just, as a new participant, or maybe somebody coming into the board leadership now, or maybe still thinking about participating, if you can share what your recommendations are for someone that is interested in joining the board, joining the board leadership program. So Susan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I would say go for it. It is a commitment, right? But I think if you have that inkling of like wanting to do something like this, like you have the right motivation, and the heart is there. So yes, you have to put together the application and all that stuff, but it's still worth it. Like the program was so helpful, and it's actually very hard for someone to just look for a board position and get into a board to participate in it. And I think this program is almost like a fast track program to equip you with all the relevant skills and the knowledge to enable you to be successful in the position, whether it is as an intern or as the full board member. And even if you don't participate in the internship, like Karen was saying, I think just knowing the content itself is also very insightful as well for future references. So yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Susan. Michael?
I absolutely agree with Susan. Go for it. And it is a commitment. And I think the one advice and recommendation is do your research upfront, right? During the pairing session, it's almost like speed dating. So do your research of the nonprofits upfront so you get an idea and sense of what their mission and values and goals are, and make sure that it aligns with what you're passionate about, right? Because it is a big commitment. So you want to make sure that what you're investing your time in and giving back to the community aligns with, what you truly believe in, and what you really want. And it's a little bit cliche, but you get what you put into it. So really take the time to network, not with just the nonprofits and the community, but those in your cohort, right? They are your sounding board. They are your mentors, your mentees, really helping each other to really give back to the community. So take advantage of that. And like Susan said, it's a fast track of nonprofit, but you get this exposure and network immediately. So definitely go for it.
Thank you both. I completely agree. As alumni myself, I think it's one of those things where I was like, "Ooh, can I be a participant?" Like, I definitely want to learn all the things that are being shared. And I think, being behind the scenes, I don't really get to sit and listen in, right? So I was helping with the logistics, and was really prepping speakers and all those things. And as I saw the content, come through, I was like, oh, I really want to learn what they're learning here. So that next year I was like, I want to be a participant because I know it's super important. So practical knowledge of what board members, what your roles are, what your responsibility is, and the type of impact you make, right? Most folks think, oh, I'm just one person, the board's 14 people, who am I, on this board? But you really need to find why you're there, number one, right? So what Michael was saying, that passion really plays a huge role. And I think that's one reason why we're so intentional, with APCF as our partner, really intentional with bringing in those nonprofit partners and vetting folks to ensure that we have a great match, right? That's why we're so intentional with making sure nonprofit partners meet the participants, making sure the participants meet our nonprofit partners. Do your research on the programs that they do. What are their impacts? What's the community that they're supporting, right? And does that align with you as a person? Does that align with how you want to give back to the community? And does that align with the impact that you want to make? And one person on a board makes a huge difference, right? In the program, we'll get into the nitty gritty of what, board governance actually means, but you're within a group and you have to operate as one, essentially, right? And that is a huge undertaking. But because you have other folks with you, you're not doing it alone, right? So I think it just speaks to the theme here, where it's a community. We have to do things together. We're supporting one another. We're all learning together. And then the access to the networks afterwards, actually during, immediately starting, you already have access to your cohort, 25 other people who are of like-minded, trying to do the same thing, trying to make an impact. And then of course the nonprofit partners that have, you know, their reach outside to the community. So it really does make a huge impact. So thank you both so much. I will leave the 2 last minutes for any last words that you'd like to share with the folks that are with us today. So Susan, any last words?
Well, I think I went pretty hard with the last question. I don't know if I have any further comments or insights to add. Yeah, I just want to once again just another plug. You know, it is such a good program, and I personally benefited so much from it. When Karen reached out and asked me if I could be on the panel to just share the experience and my perspective, I was like, yes, because you know, I think this program is definitely spread like through word of mouth, and everyone who talks about it, everyone who's been part of it is really, really supportive of the program, and they want to give back for the knowledge that we obtained through the program. So, believe me, it is very beneficial and very helpful.
Thank you, Susan. Michael, last words?
Absolutely. I think Susan, you know, you covered everything. It's definitely one of a kind. You know, I've been in this community for several years, and I haven't really run across anything similar to this. And really, it's a word of mouth. Every year, there's people who want to join and who hear about this and really want to, you know, give back and drives kind of like the fire, you know, just to give back to community. And it's so worth it. It's definitely a commitment, but it's so worth it at the end. The community, you know, the impact you make in a community, the people you meet, but also selfishly, you know, the leadership skills, you know, use it as a platform to experiment with how you communicate, you know, facilitate meetings, you know, use it to your advantage. But at the end of the day, you know, it's the impact you make and that warm feeling you get when you look back and say, I did that.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for summing that up so great. I think we have to be selfish, right? So I think we have to change the negative connotation with being selfish. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. There's no way that you can't be selfish. So I think I always look to self-improvement, right? I always look to developing myself personally and professionally before I can even think about giving back, right? And I want to give so much, but I'm like, I need to figure out how to conserve my energy and myself, and then be able to share that, you know, giving with the world and the community that I want to support. So be selfish, right? Develop yourself, go through this professional development and training, and then utilize those skills and training that you learn to support the community that you want to support, right? So thank you, Susan and Michael, so much for being our panelists today. Learned so much from you, and I really, really appreciate you sharing your experiences. Can we give Susan and Michael a little round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you.
And
This
if
was
you
a lot of fun. Thank you.
Of course. If you don't mind, we're going to move into the Q&A session, and some folks might have questions for you, so I'm going to keep you up here. And then I want to open it up for our audience to share any questions. So thank you, Rachel, for sharing something in the chat already. Great sharing, Susan and Michael. I can see the passion from your eyes. API nonprofits are so fortunate to have you serve on their board. Absolutely true. And I think it's you both represent the BLP cohorts like so well. Everyone really just comes in with their best self forward of like, how can I be the best me to support these nonprofits that I want to support and the community that I want to help. So thank you both so much for being here and being who you are. And so I'll open it up for Q&A. So let's see, I'll lean on Rachel. Do you see any hands being raised, or if folks want to unmute, ask your question, or pop your questions into the chat? And it could be any question, right? BLP question, program related, questions for Michael or Susan specifically. Now's your opportunity.
Hi, Karen, it's Rachel. I can actually start it off with a question that we got for someone who's not here. For those who are interested in the board internship, is it only a required attendance in Southern California? Would it mostly be valuable for people who are located in Southern California?
Great question. I think it definitely is something that we're trying to be flexible with, and it depends on the nonprofit board, right? So the internship, as we mentioned, is in partnership with nonprofits that are seeking board members, and for the most part, the nonprofits are located within Southern California. Pandemic has made it interesting, though, where folks, of course, would call into meetings remotely. And there have been folks who have gone through the program that are not in Southern California. And so that is actually a discussion that I would lean on for the nonprofits to share what their policy is around board support and board attendance, right? So that is something that is flexible. Every board is different. Most boards would want you to attend their meetings in person when we are safely able to attend meetings in person. So I would lean on, for the most part, in-person meetings are the most important. But that is something where, let's say you are maybe close by, but not super close, and it's a commute. That's a question where I would write down for the internship meet and greet, where you're meeting the nonprofit, and ask them specifically, right? If I live in San Francisco and I'm only in LA 3 months, out of the year, but you have meetings every other month, right? As a intern or as a potential board member, would I be someone you consider, or do you have to attend in person, right? So these are definitely questions that I would ask the nonprofit board. So thank you, Rachel, for that.
Of course, and then we have a hand raised from Stephanie Wong, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, thanks. Hey, Karen. Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me or hosting this session to learn more about this program. Really curious to ask, I think it was Michael or Susan had mentioned this, talking about firsthand experience in board meetings. I don't know what it's like to be in a board meeting. I don't know what it's like to serve on a board. I would love to hear maybe any initial firsthand experiences in these meetings, even like if it's really mundane, the minutia. I want to hear what that kind of experience is all about. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your Stephanie, or this. Thank you for Stephanie. Thank you for your question, Stephanie. Susan, Michael, do either one of you want to take that first response?
Sure. I mean, I remember my first meeting, I was a fly on the wall. I had no idea what was going on, to be honest. But over time, as the meetings progress and you're involved in more and more in the meetings, you start to see what you learn in the workshops in place. The Roberts rules, the financial analysis, certain things, how meetings are conducted. And really, during the internship, I would also recommend to volunteer yourself, get involved. If there's a committee, if there's anything, that the board has, get involved and, roll up the sleeves and really be a part of it. That's where you experience it the most. But like I said, the first initial meetings, I was new to it. I had no idea what was going on, and you sit there and go, "Oh, okay." But over time, you start getting the rhythm. You start getting used to it, and that's where, don't be shy. Raise your hand if you have an opinion. If you have a thought, feel free to raise it. It's a safe environment to really experiment and push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, great response. Susan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think my first meeting, I was just kind of observing, right? Like you're an intern, so you're just kind of, like learning, like what's happening, like how does this work? So I remember the first meeting, it was a virtual meeting, and it was actually pretty structured. So how the meeting went. So it started out with like approving the meeting minutes from the prior session, and I had those materials from like that was shared with the board members beforehand. So I just like looked through just to get a sense of like what kind of topics they talk about, because some of the topics might be brought up again. and there's the whole agenda, and then, you know, there are different discussion topics that the executive director and the chairman of the board is going to talk through and share updates. So very structured. It's a really good opportunity to get to know the organization further and just see what the new items are. So I think it kind of continued like that for a couple more meetings. And then once we met in person and we started diving into more detailed topics, I started to raise my hand and ask more questions. And like Michael was saying, it's a safe environment, it's a safe space. Like everyone is very respectful and they value you being there, right? So I don't think there's any stupid question. At least that's what I told myself when I raised my hand.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Both Susan and Michael, I think that's kind of the beauty of being an intern, because the board understands you're an intern, right? So they'll find out ahead of time, do you have board experience? For the most part, and this is your first time, right? So as an intern, you have that flexibility to just be that fly on the wall because you're unsure of what is happening right now, right? You're kind of stepping in the middle of the year, you're getting in their meeting, right? So you're trying to figure out what's been happening. Number one, let me get caught up to speed, right? And ask questions. So I think that's definitely, you know, a great approach, and you have some flexibility because you are an intern. So great question. Thank you, Stephanie. I do have a few questions already that have been sent to me directly. So one of them is, how are people chosen for the BLP program? Don't you have to be referred by a current board member? No, actually. So the program is open to everyone who's interested in becoming a board member, wants to learn how to become a board member, or maybe you're already a board member, but you want to be an effective one, right? You weren't trained how to become a board member. So I think what some folks might be thinking of is being invited to sit on a board, actually. So most folks are tapped, right? You know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and they're like, hey, are you interested in being a board member on our board? That's essentially how most folks are tapped to become board members. So unless you know someone who knows someone, right, that has an available board seat, you might never get tapped to be a board member. So that's one beautiful thing of this pipeline that we've created, to have more Asian American minority representation on nonprofit boards, hoping to break through that ceiling and get to corporate boards, but that's a different discussion. But for the program itself, the only vetting process we go through is, of course, you know, your level of community service, right? Because board service is community service, and, you know, your level of commitment, right? So there's a whole application process that we'll share. And that actually, I hope that answers your question, that you don't have to be referred to the board leadership program. The next question actually is, what is the application process? And do you pay a registration fee up front? How many applicants typically? If, for example, what's the acceptance rate? So great question. The application process is on our website. So Stephanie, if you don't mind sharing the BLP link again, that'd be great. So there's an application, you register. So you go through the process of registering for the program. It's $4.99 for an individual, and you'll get an email confirmation that includes the application. The application is pretty straightforward, about 10 to 15 questions. You upload your resume, which is shared with the nonprofit partners if you're interested in the internship component. And then you have a personal statement that is pretty short. It could be a short paragraph. And that essentially will help us gauge your commitment level. And then I will schedule a quick 30-minute call with you just to ensure I answer any questions that you have about the internship if you're interested, and essentially answer any questions that you have about the program. And I shared that we've capped the participants to 25. So we used to have a range of participants, but we found that 25 is a great sweet spot, A, for us capacity-wise, but B, to be intentional with your training, right? We want to give you the attention and the value that you deserve going through this program. And so the acceptance rate is at 25, we stop accepting folks. So you can apply, we'll talk to you, we'll vet you, we'll ensure that you are committed to go through this program for the next 6 months, and then we'll accept you if all things align. And that essentially is the process. The link that Rachel shared the event, the session dates are also in on the website. So our first and last sessions are in person. I believe it's April 22nd, Saturday, 9 to 5. That's a full day session. And then the last one is in August, which is also a full day session, both in person. And then we have our virtual lunch sessions in between. So it's a hybrid program this year. I hope that helps with your question there. And then I have another question. Thank you for a very informative and inspiring presentation. What is the approximate time commitment for the program separate from the internship? So the time commitment would be to attend the sessions, right? So you have the number of hours for each one of those sessions. And then separate from the internship, it just depends on reviewing the information, right? So if you want to be a great student, there's going to be handouts, there's going to be slide decks, there's going to be homework before and after most sessions. Some speakers want to ensure that you have the information for activities beforehand. So factor in a few hours a month, right, for to dedicate to your training and development in the program. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. Really appreciate that. So Rachel just shared the link to our board leadership program, and then the session dates as well. And the in-person events will be at the Southern California Learning Center in Monterey Park, California. So most folks, since we put out the dates early, will make arrangements to be there in person for the first and last sessions. Great questions, y'all. Really diving into the logistics here. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Or things that yes, Michael.
Is there a percentage of sessions you have to attend to successfully graduate to complete the program?
Great question. Yes, we allow for 1 to 2 missed sessions, but we would prefer you to attend all of the sessions. You would have to let us know ahead of time so we can make arrangements for either a makeup session. And I think the beauty of being hybrid was the word I was looking for. The beauty of being hybrid is that we have 2 years of Zoom recordings of different curriculum. So what I'd like to do is, I understand not everyone can be there in person. Sometimes life happens, we get that, but please do try your best to attend the in-person sessions and the virtual sessions, especially if you're going to be an intern, because the first session we make mandatory because that's where you meet your nonprofits. Again, we're very intentional with the match and we're very intentional with alignment. We want our nonprofit folks to get the value out of our program as well. So we want to ensure that both parties meet each other. So the first session, we make that mandatory. Unfortunately, if you don't attend the first session, we'd have to move on with other intern candidates to ensure that the nonprofits do have an intern for the program. So I want to put that out there. If you're considering an internship and can't make the first session, you might want to consider joining the board leadership program next year when you can commit that time to be an intern. And then if there's curriculum that you missed that we have recorded from previous years, we'll try to share that topic so you can at least get the training for that particular session. So great question and thank you. So 1 to 2, but let us know ahead of time. And then there's makeup time for the sessions that you missed. All right. Is that an additional question? Let's see. Do you have a question, but there's no option for me to raise hand and I can't type quickly enough. Oh, if you want to unmute, if you're comfortable unmuting, you can ask as well.
Okay, hi. I don't know if you can hear or see me.
Yes, hi, John. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. Thanks for great information, very interesting. And I know you talked about training quite a bit and the whole program. I guess I still have a little apprehension in terms of the nonprofit board member part because, I worked over 30 years in the utility companies for LADWP. I work for a private company now, part-time. So, I know the public, I know the private, but, I know nothing about nonprofit. And, the rules are different there. I mean, the rules are different being on a board, and the rules are kind of different in terms of it being a nonprofit. So I guess I know you have the whole training program and the internship program, but it still seems a little overwhelming or intimidating. I've got, I was an engineering manager. I know how to do the supervision and leadership and stuff, but, I'm clueless on the nonprofit stuff. So maybe you can address that.
Yeah, thank you for your question, John. I think because the training really emphasizes nonprofit boards, right? So we are specific on being very intentional with the practical training that nonprofits have to go through. So I will share that one of the sessions is AAPI nonprofits and our communities, and we share the history behind what that community looks like and what folks are essentially going through and what are the trends right now. So I know it seems a little intimidating and there sounds like a lot of sessions and it's a 6-month training. But just like you said, without any experience in the nonprofit sector, that's what makes this training so special, is that you're going to get all that information about what is happening in the nonprofit sector right now and how can you support this sector, especially within the AAPI community, as a board member. So I think that essentially is everything in a nutshell, but I know Chunyan probably has more to add to that. Chunyan?
So I do want to adding that the reason we have BOP is perfect for you, John, that now you have time, you went through the both public and private sector. Now you like, okay, but I never been to the nonprofit board. So you are the perfect candidate we are looking for. So I wouldn't put you into the board internship right away, because usually the best way is that I just put on the chat about this is the subject and topic will go over in our, and that the speaker and the curriculum was being prepared for 8 years. Every year we improve upon. So we will make sure that by the time you graduate, which is September, that you already feel, okay, I know what nonprofit board need to do. So, but if somebody feel like, okay, I want to learn and to try, then you try board intern. So you will learn on the same time, apply that, and then when you come back to the board leadership workshop, you can ask the question, say, hey, I was at the board meeting last month. What were they doing? I don't understand. And that was a perfect live example for you to ask at the workshop. So I really want you to feel like for everybody who never knowing what nonprofit do, what board need to do, that's what the purpose of BLP. But if you feel like it's too much to learn at the same time to apply for internship, then you shouldn't apply for internship. That's why I ask people that we only have 7, 8, or even 10 spots for internship. And there's a 25 for the cohort, right? So it's not everybody good for the internship. And another thing will be is that even you thought you want to be internship, we may not give you one. It depends on whether you are ready or we think you are ready. Or it's possible you are ready, but there's no match, because it depends on what the host agency wants to do. And I think Karen mentioned about that many nonprofits, either they have a current vacancy, but they're still looking for what the expertise or skill each board director bring in. They are not going to have I would say, repeat the same, say you are in the company, you both on the same company. I'm not going to have board director come from the same company. So very quickly, if I already have board director sitting from guest company, no matter how good you are, I'm not going to get another board director from guest company. So those are the things will be on the factor about why we are not taking the internship, or for different reasons. It has nothing to do about your background of resume, but it's more about what the nonprofit need, what the diverse board leader they are looking for. So I'm just saying that if you're not ready to apply for internship, you don't have to. I really hope that the 25 cohort are really learning together, bring a lot of good questions, and whoever happened to be the intern will bring the life experience question. So we hope to address that. So by the time when you finish September, you say, okay, now I'm ready to serve on the board. Then APCF can still help you. We'll tell you which one is still looking, even they are not host, see whether there's a match. But I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, great question, John. Thank you. All right, we are 2 minutes over. I want to be respectful of time, but I do want to ensure that we have everybody's questions answered. Any last minute things? Thank you, Rachel, for sharing all this information. Yes, resumes. So if you're interested in the internship, part of the application asks for you to upload your resume. So that will be part of the BLP application. Okay, great. If folks have any other questions or you want to learn more, you still, have questions that come up afterwards, feel free to reach out to any of us here. Myself, I think my contact information is shared, but I'll also pop in my email address here for folks. AAPA-mentoring.com. And then deadline, actually, sorry, so I'm going to run a few minutes late just to share with you all the deadline. We're going to accept applications up to the week before what day is it? Sorry. Like, the first day is April 22nd. So we'll be accepting late registrations, but we can't guarantee internship applicants at that time because we want to ensure that the nonprofit partners have the information that they need. So late registration will be up until the week before, so the 15th of April. And then internships, if you can have your applications in by the end of the month, so the 31st of March. That will just help us with having that one-on-one conversation with you to ensure that the internship works out. And we also will share the internship hosts that Chen Yan mentioned. And then let's see. What other deadlines was I supposed to share? First session is in Monterey Park, April 22nd, and then we have the link there for the application. I think that was the only deadlines that I was going to share. So thank you all so much for your participation and your support. Feel free to reach out to learn more, support the organizations that you heard about today. So if APCF, you heard about the great work that Chen Yan and the team is doing, and do your own research, right? If you're interested and you want to learn more, reach out to the folks that are here with us today. And thank you so much and have a great rest of your night. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Chen Yan.